this is a very strange one. Because I'm not actually sleeping, but I am sleeping. So then but I noticed when I'm waking up, I was started to wake up more earlier, and now I've gone back to waking up late again.
Yeah,
but I'm still feeling tired.
The only time you're really sleeping is when you're in that deep sleep, innit? Because, like, if you're, like, most people anyway, you know, when you're in your first sleep and their last sleep, you're actually awake, but you're just in a delusion. And when you're in your deep
that's
sleep,
what I'm trying to describe.
when you're in a deep sleep, you're in a delusion and your body has shut down. Because your body takes a while to shut down. Because every time when you're in a delusion, you don't want your body to shut down. Because when you shut your body down in a delusion, it's almost being lost in space with nothing happening.
Yeah.
Whereas when your body's active, you're getting interactions from the outside world in your delusion. But when your body completely shuts down, then it goes. But by then, you've taken enough information to carry on, and you get so caught up in your, like, in whatever's going on. It's like a big playfield in your delusion. You're playing so well that when your body's shut off, straight away, you forget that your body's shut off, and you're playing with all the things all the centuries that have come into your delusion. And then as your body comes back, it brings back more ones, and then you start to rock. And, you know, obviously if it's in the morning, people are talking, cars make sure familiar sounds are coming now, gets you curious, isn't it? And that curiosity brings you out of the thing. But the problem is, if you're very creative like you, the SPs are very creative. So when they go into that delusion, even when reality is coming in there, they're so agile at going around it. So they become almost like superheroes within their delusions. So therefore, they can stay in there much longer. That's hence why you guys sleep a hell of a lot longer than anyone. It's not because you're physically lazy. It's not because, like what you think, you're going to say, oh, I've got a bad stomach. Oh, it's because I had a hard night last night. Oh, it's because I was doing this. These are just things because when you guys don't understand something, it makes you go into an overthinking again. So that you don't go into overthinking, you blame something in consciousness that would justify why you felt the way you did. But the problem is that stops you from being able to enjoy that moment, because every time you're in your delusion, what you've got to remember is you never remember the last time or anything other than that delusion.
No.
When you're in consciousness, you don't literally remember much more than what it was you focused on within the time that you've been living. And if you didn't focus on it, it's like it didn't exist. So almost everything in life feels like magic. Yeah. That's the overthinking. A lot of SPs struggle with overthinking and don't actually understand that they're overthinking. They're thinking they've got migraines. They just put it down to, oh, this one said this to me, and I just think about it a lot. I don't realise it's actually a real problem.
You said something a minute ago about like external noises like cars and that.
Yeah.
And I read something that said we're more, like, SPs are more almost autistic like that. I don't remember what the word is, like hypersensitive. Like I've said it to you before, like where I can hear the clock tick in my ears, ringing
in a
the
nutshell,
cars.
in a nutshell, yeah, in a nutshell, when you're, just look at it like this, yeah? You imagine if you were sitting in this room, yeah?
Uh-huh.
And while you're sitting in this room, it's like a big room, yeah? And in here, you just got things going on, and like I'm talking, other people are talking, things like that, yeah? Anything happening outside that room that's not very loud and prominent, you're probably not going to notice.
Yeah.
But if I put you in this room and it's completely silent, not dial, you can even all hear your hair move itself. Yeah? Well, everything outside now that comes, you're going to hear it to detail, isn't it? So because when you go into a delusion, anybody who goes into a fantasy or a delusion, NI would be the delusion, NE would be the fantasy. You go into any fantasy or delusion, everything is almost silent. It's just complete nothingness. So therefore, any action, anything, you become vigilant to every detail of sound. That's why when it's working in consciousness, so when you're in consciousness and it's working alongside your consciousness, that's hence why then you call somebody highly intelligent, because they become highly sensitive to every detail of sensory, basically, because you're in a nothingness. So that means sensory is something. So when you get something with nothing, you hear everything of something. You know what I mean? Whereas if you're in your delusion, and you've got a lot of things going on in your delusion, so you're in a imagination thinking, why has this person done this to me? If I could feel it like this, how much could this be? What if it was that side? I could have this. When you get them kind of thoughts in your mind, well then what you'll find is you'll be absolutely absent from reality. You won't hear no sounds. You won't realise you won't react to anybody because you're caught up. Because all your sensory now, you've created it within your delusion. So when you create it within your delusion, you no longer need to use the one outside. You're almost like you've recreated the outside world in your mind. Until when your mind can allow you to walk on the outside world without actually realistically looking, and that's then what you would call an autistic person. So somebody who was like sensory, who uses autism at the back, like intuition at the back, would be like what they'd describe as an autistic trait, because you wouldn't be autistic, but after a while, when you get overwhelmed, you fall into the traits of an autistic.
I think that's what I was trying to say, really, like, because I hear it a lot about autism, and like it confuses me, because I was about to go on to say what you just said. It swaps around. Like I have this time where I can't wear socks, I can't feel this, and all the noises are too much. I'm trying to concentrate on you talking, and then I hear the kids, I hear like now the road, I hear my ears, like everything's going on. It's like stop it, make it stop, and I get into such a state. But then on the other hand, it seems to swap round, and that's what you see with autistic people. But then on the other hand, it swaps round, and like you said, it's like I'm oblivious. You could be sitting there with I don't know, doing something absolutely crazy, and I wouldn't even notice.
What I've noticed with the SP community, the ISPs, I find that I got it from myself, because like until I understood you guys as SPs, I was oblivious even of myself. But by seeing you, then seeing the things that you lot do and the things that you moan about and unaware of, I was aware of the things that you wasn't aware of and unaware of the things that you were aware of. So therefore, I was able to look, and when I stopped to think about it, I realised with you guys, what I noticed, I observed, was that, like me, if you stay still, so like when I understood about ADHD and ADD and all the rest, so inattention, I realised that where I'm more ADHD, so whereas with me I'll start to think, I like this and I like that, so that same overthink you do, but where it becomes a pressure to you, it ain't no pressure to me. I enjoy doing it. It's part of my day. Just looking at every detail of what everyone's doing, and just so caught up in that thing that I literally lose all sense of senses what's going on. It used to get me into trouble. That's what people led to think that I'm reckless. That's when people think I'm like some kind of roughneck gangster. Because it's not that, it's just that when they're looking at me, my face is seriously, but in my mind, I'm in a beautiful place having a laugh, so I've not even come to stop to think about how I'm perceiving to other people.
Yeah.
And I realised that my brain is thinking faster. So as my brain thinks fast, then my body then starts to jump up and wants to do, but my body can't do as quick as my brain, so my body keeps going to keep up with my brain. So then that's how I realise I'm more ADHD, so where as I start to thinking, I get hyperactive, I can't stay still. Where you guys, I realise, is the opposite of me. So the ISTP then would, in one way, represent me in the way that they're opposite, where they will use their action. And you guys, you're the same, but one's rational, one's ethical. You use your action. One will say, what's the logics of everything? I could just put this over there and put that there, and that would be done. The other one thinks, I wonder what that would be like if I put that up there. That would be fun. And then as you guys make action, so to start thinking or to start breathing, to start moving, any action, as you make action, it's like one sends adrenaline and the other one sends dopamine straight to the brain. The brain starts kicking over real fast. And the more you do, it's like it's pumping the brain to go faster and faster and faster. And so what really happened with you guys is that when your brain starts really thinking quick, it's almost like you're looking at every detail, like me. Like now I'm talking, I'm looking at every detail while I'm talking and trying to talk of every detail as quick as I can. That's the hyperactiveness. Whereas you guys get into that and you look at every detail, but it's happening so quick that you've seen everything and you're doing it quite easily. but you can't stay still because now you're not just, you think, oh, we're looking at answers. If you look at a superhero film, it's like, I can see the answer. No, you're looking at simple, the feeling of your finger, what your hair's doing, that car that sounds you, the feel of your arm on that thing. Every detail you'll think of so super quick that you're literally moving at such a pace that even though to me, a normal person, you just look a bit agitated, but if you could see it in real terms, you're moving at such a super speed, I'm surprised you can even stay still.
Well, that's where I was going on to say next. Like, I see myself as this, like, most of the time, calm, sort of, still, sort of, almost sloth-like person. I'm not really that arse. I'm just kind of happy to just sit down on my own, listen to some music. But then I have, like, even now, see all these cars, all these different things, and I'm sitting there and I'm interested in what you're saying. It gives me this feeling, like, if you check my heart rate now, it's probably going at 10 to a dozen. Everything feels like faster, amplified, like it really gets, really, really bothers me.
Yeah. Because what's going to happen with you is, like, for instance, if I'm talking to you, especially anybody using FE, automatically is going to set off your BPD, set off your emotions, make you get like anxiety, not anxiety, but an excitement, anxiety kind of feeling straight away. Then when someone's using NI with it too, it's even worse because now they're going to directly hit you exactly at the points what are going to make you do that. And as you feel that's going to spark your brain off, that's why you find you'll always want to talk to FE users. Because as it sparks your brain, as it sizzles that dopamine to your brain, you start talking. And you'll start talking with them. And it's almost like, as you start talking to them, they start to react in the same way as you. Because as you talk to them, it's equal or opposite. The same thing's going to happen. When you start talking to them, their rationale is going to kick off. That's why you find yourself interested in the FE user. I can't actually remember what was your question again in the first place?
About why, but because I seem like an autistic. Because it's about dreams and how No,
we digress. We come from there, but because I think you were just saying about how you was how when there's loads of noise, when there's noise. So I was saying to you, so when your adrenaline hits you and your brain starts thinking real fast, then every single noise is gonna then you're gonna hear every detail you become, because what you gotta remember with SPs and NEPs, well, SPs specifically, right? These SPs become intelligent as they become overwhelmed. In other words, you become more autistic as you're overwhelmed, whereas we're comfortable being intelligent, and as we get overwhelmed, so the NJs there, we become more simpler in our action as we become overwhelmed. So that's the problem, is as you're talking to people or thinking there, you're going to get excited. The more you get excited, your mind's going to get more creative. You're going to start thinking of more details, more things there. If you notice, when you're having a conversation, you're going to struggle to keep your conversation at a flow. You're going to keep it at a flow. Just like just a little while ago, we forgot where we were at, our chain of thought. Because that's what's going to happen, because when your brain starts to speed up too much, it gets so complex that when you sort of calm down, if you get any trip and you calm down, as you calm down, you can't remember which one of them avenues you was at. And we tend to talk so much that we forgot where we came from. You know what I mean? So that's the autistic trait. That's why you then would understand what it's like for a specific type of autistic. Because you got to remember, I'm not suggesting that what I am, because everybody will have an experience of what autism is, because autism isn't something that you should be scared of like a mental disease. It's not a mental disease. It's a pattern of your mind. And it's only when you can't cope with that pattern, when you can't make that pattern work with society that you're living in, then it becomes what you then call clinical. So when it becomes clinical, then clinically they'll diagnose you as autistic because you're struggling. So when you see that most people are not being diagnosed, it's not necessarily because there's a conspiracy that nobody's being diagnosed. It's only because of the fact that it's not really the state's business up until the point that you become a problem to the state. Whereas if you feel as though you're autistic or anything like that, you should go to a professional yourself rather than waiting for the state. Because if you haven't got a problem, you're going to go in a queue for a long time. But if you go to yourself, it's costly. But you go yourself and find out, at least then, if you are autistic, you can start to make, look at what it is, what type. Because, you've got the autistic people, like, for instance, the INPs, the SJs. The SJs are like you, where they're overwhelmed, they fall into sort of that type of autism. Whereas the INPs, EMPs, in their comfort, they're in that autistic state. But again, because NPs and EMPs are much more realistic to the world, they don't really have a big struggle. So in reality, there probably wouldn't be a reason for them to go seek themselves unless they're having problems in life, and then it would come up. So this whole autistic argument isn't about, oh, I want to be checked to see if I'm autistic. Look, my advice to anybody, and even yourself, is like you only have the trait. If you can find a way to conduct your life to make you feel comfortable and happy in what you're doing, that you don't have to you're not going to have a problem with autism, then don't worry about it. Just understand it, that when you fall into that state, you know what to do. But if you feel as though you're struggling, then go and get that support.
Well, that comes on to my next question, really. When you are at that stage where... I'm at this weird stage in my life where I totally see what you're saying. Like, I have a side of me which is like autistic, and a side that's like...
real to the world.
Yeah, real. Yeah, to the world. It's just there. It's just me. But then I find as well with how my thinking, I have different ways of thinking. And how do you then... What do you do to make that easier? Like, to help you along so you don't fall into that pattern where you become clinical. I spoke to
I said to my daughter today, same thing today. Said to her like this. I said, rather than try to bring reality to your delusion, put some of your delusions on top of your reality. So in other words, rather than falling into a delusion and allowing the sensory to come in, because then it's like being in a delusion with loads of monsters coming in, getting in your way. You should go the other way. Stay real. You're a sensor. Sensor means interact with the world, react with the world. What's happening in the world, you react to what's happening. That's to be real. Yeah? And then don't bother worry about what you understand. Just get on. Just do what you know. You just walk, you're going down the road. You go to school normally. You go to work. You tidy your house. Whatever it is that you do throughout the day, just do it like normal. Don't worry about what more you could do, what you should do. And when you can no longer do any more, then start to think out the box. Just start to look at the detail of what's going on and work out what's going on. Focus on that thing. If you look at the detail of what's going on, then the answer will just sit there almost like as though it was just sitting there and like, how the hell did I miss it? Yeah? And then you've got the solution. You've solved that problem and carry on. Or if you really want to, you want to excel your life, you want to be great, you want to go and put yourself, you want to really show your creativity. Yeah? Well, that's different. Well, go into your delusions. And live within your delusions and learn how to stay within your delusions and come out as you please. But it's a very hard place to play because, in reality, a delusion is no different to schizophrenia. Is a type of delusion. Schizophrenia is like when you're almost stuck in that delusion. Yeah, so staying in a delusion too long isn't very healthy for any human being. I'm talking it like as though it's a joke, like it's a fantasy, but it is really not a fantasy. It's absolutely something that, let's just put it this way. If you listen to anybody on the internet and they tell you about these things here and these self-helps and stuff like that, the only advice I'd only ever give to anybody, if you feel as though you're struggling, go and get professional help. Do not try self-help. Don't worry about what people are telling you about, they put this in there and autism comes from this, because it doesn't come from anything. It's just the way we are set. And it's just that there is many different people in this life. There's many different ways society has to work in order to cope with the different people and how they're going to be comfortable. So don't take it personally, because in your delusion, you're going to become so intelligent that you're going to think that everybody's out to get you. So have people around you who are realistic, especially if you're an intuitive autistic. Have realistic people around you so that when you're in that moment, that somebody is there to support you and talk up you and put you in the right place.
I think as well, one of my questions is how do you go and get that help, whether it be from a doctor or a friend, when sometimes you feel embarrassed because it sounds a bit weird when you say, I can see myself sitting over there, but you're not actually saying that you don't know how to explain it, so to speak.
Well, if you're like a sensory person, for instance, yeah, different to an intuitive, yeah, getting there, if we're talking from your perspective, if you're a sensory person, well, you've got an advantage. Because when you fall into that place, yeah, because you're a sensory person, you're more likely to interact with people who are much more interactive.
Yeah.
Yeah, although you enjoy interacting with people who are less realistic to the world. So therefore, when you're with people, even if you're with people who are like intuitive, less interactive with the world, at the point that you're in intuition, you're going to make them overwhelmed. So as you make them overwhelmed, they become realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah? And same with sensory people. They ain't necessarily going to be overwhelmed. And some of them are going, when they get overwhelmed, they become intelligent, especially like if you're an SJ or a SJ or NP, when they're using their intuition is good at getting around, knowing what to do for you. So so that's why these kind of conversations are important, because by understanding the difference of how people work, what they're good for, you don't need to understand it as in NE and all that. All you need to understand is that this person is good at negotiating themselves away my emotions. You know, understand they're good at helping my emotions flow this way. Try to see that I try to appreciate. Try to appreciate the value of the values in a person, because people, you know, we all sit there and say out of rhetoric, oh, they're beautiful, and that's all well and good, they are. But try to understand what is the beauty, because there'll be one thing beautiful about a person that shines so bright that it seems like everything about them is beautiful. But everything else about them won't be beautiful, and that's the beautiful thing. Perfection isn't beauty. Imperfection is beauty. So it's like trying to see people for their imperfections, and rather than seeing them for imperfections and then looking down your nose at them, see them for their imperfections, yeah, and enjoy the differences, enjoy the things that makes them not normal. Because sometimes when you see somebody and they were perfect, you don't want to do nothing, you feel too embarrassed.
Yeah.
You're going to feel too embarrassed. You're going to feel like as though if I do it, things like a lot of people look at me and think, oh, you're perfect, so they don't want to do nothing because they think I'm perfect.
Yeah.
But when you see somebody who has imperfections, yeah, they have flaws. It makes you feel a bit more confident that you feel like it's like a rite of passage. Like I'm not that odd then, because you feel more confident. Well, I can do that part there and add it to it.
Yeah, I see it like it's relatable.
Yeah.
When something's relatable, you're more likely gonna be able to talk about it or have conversations. And stuff.
Right.
Whereas if you feel like someone ain't gonna understand or doesn't relate to it, you keep things back.
That's right, and that's exactly it. So, it's a kind of thing where you've just got there isn't an ideal solution, because when you get into delusion, I'll be honest with you, anybody out there who's an SP, yeah, so ESFPs, ISFPs, ISTP, ESTPs, them four there. Must remember, when you fall overwhelmed, you're going to become highly intelligent. So how now do you help somebody, a highly intelligent person? You imagine if you had a highly intelligent person taking Pro Plus. Yeah, it's like a hyperactive, intelligent person. And that's what you lot turn to. So it's hard for someone then to give you a solution when you can always find something to say. So it's going to be a struggle. If you look, it's always going to be a struggle. The main way a SP can help themselves is to conduct their life in such a way that they don't fall in that situation, and then try to involve yourself, should I say, in creativity in any which way. Find a way to express your creativity for fun. Isolated place just for no reason other than just seeing how far and how it works. That's almost like exercise. So it's like you're practicing it, enhancing it to become better. So that means anytime you do fall in that place, because you can't stop yourself from falling in that place. You will one point, but you can control it that it happens less likely. And when you do fall that place, if you're able, it's like being in a sea. If you're able to swim, at least when you fall in there, you can swim out. You might not always get to swim out, but at least you stand a chance. But if you don't learn to swim, you will sink in there. So it's a type of thing where the first thing you must understand is learn to swim in your delusion, in a nutshell. Learn to swim in your delusion. Learn to love it. Learn to accept it. Yeah? And when you start to learn to accept it, when you hear words like autism, BPD, bipolar, you won't be so frightened. You're only frightened most of the time because you don't really actually understand what it is. Look, your BPD, I'm watching your BPD episodes, and I'll tell you straight, yeah, I understand. I didn't really understand it. Even when they explained it to me, I didn't even understand it until I saw it in real life. And even when I saw it in real life, I had to look at it objectively, because if I didn't look at it objectively, I would have just thought I've got a mad, crazy woman, yeah, who wants to lick off my head for no good reason. No, she probably won't, but the way she talks is like as though she absolutely would. Yeah? So most people wouldn't even look on it like a BPD, because you're thinking of BPD like someone crying, like as though somebody might be a little bit this and that. But what you don't realise is BPD will always come with bipolar. So as the BPD kicks off, bipolar's going in. So it won't just be action, it will be mouth too. So, it's something that you have to really look at. At the same time, it'll only be an episode. And then once you see somebody, here's another problem you've got, is once you do it once, and then somebody sees it a couple more times, they just think, oh yeah, she's having a bad day, she's always kicking off like that. But don't realise that, if you saw it sort of 3 times in that period of 2 weeks, but you didn't see that person every day in 2 weeks, you can't be sure that they was having the episode, that they need support and be encouraged to go. Because even when you're in that, what you call then a mania, somebody can come in between that mania and help you and support you to that place.
Yeah.
But if people didn't understand, that's the problem is, when you guys are in that, if somebody isn't around, they're not going to know, because then when they say, how long have you been like this? So what do you mean, how long have you been like this? Do you think there's something wrong with you? You're going to be offended. You're going to be angry at them, because you're going to be like, nah, nothing's wrong with me, this and that. And then as soon as you go somewhere, you're going to put your best behaviour on, because when you're in that bipolar moment, you're able to talk really concise, really properly, and then everybody thinks you're more than okay. And in actual fact, you're struggling. That's BPD. It's not something to be scared of, it's something to try to be understood.
What you're saying is true, even with my doctors, the psychiatric doctors, what they're saying is that, what was it? Like, if you're in a delusion, or you're feeling like the world's gonna end, or you're really stressed or whatever, then they said anyone around you, they shouldn't just turn around and say, oh, what's wrong with you? Snap out of it. Or let's go to the doctor, because you're not going to listen. You're not going to hear it at that moment. Yeah. If you think the world is ending, the world is ending. They don't care if you've just got £1 million. The person ain't going to get it.
If you want to deal with somebody in BPD, sensory BPD, because it's different. You can't just say BPD. There's a lot of this BPD, and I sure know those who suffer with BPD clinically. Yeah, when they hear people just saying BPD, some of them will feel disincluded because it does affect them. And in fact, if you mix the two together, both will feel disincluded, because they'll be like, it's like, that's what happened to me, but it's just something doesn't sit right, doesn't feel right. Yeah. Because there's two, you got to look at it as an autistic BPD and sensory BPD, which is like normal BPD. But the sensory one is the worst one, because you're going to physically react out. So people are going to see it react out. Yeah, and then you're going to fall into that bipolar. And when you fall into that bipolar, you're not talking sense into bipolar once it's on at that rate. Now, bipolar is not something you have to worry about again, because again, it works the same as BPD. It depends if you're having it a lot of times over a period of time. Yeah? So therefore, when you fall into that bipolar, what you need someone to do, because you guys can go into bipolar quite fast without it being clinical. Yeah. And that's the problem. So therefore, somebody would need to then, when you're in that, she's like, when we're talking, I will come back and say to you, I'll look and say to you, look, you say, oh, everybody hates me, and I just think because I keep making mistakes. I said, what mistakes did you make? Oh, I make because I do this. No. Slow down. Tell me one by one. You see what I'm saying? Because then rationality, then you're gonna, when I slow you down, your brain's gonna start focusing what I'm doing and start looking at things, and it's finding something positive thing, and the more positive it thinks of, then as soon as you take yourself away from that dark place, as soon as you start thinking about just things, and not necessarily good things, but things that make sense, that, a matter of fact, looking at things logically for a particular reason, well, then you will create emotion. And as you create emotion, you feel happier, and then you start to feel bad for even being bad, and then you will start to calm yourself down. That's a little trick that I've learned. I wouldn't suggest that it is the ideal way, but in all honesty, probably I could quietly, confidently say it's probably the safest thing to do in that moment.
I find as well, like, it's so misunderstood that everybody's been, like you said, categorised the same, and it really actually annoys me to an extent, like, if you're not in hospital, you're fine, or if you're in hospital, you're crazy, and it don't actually have to be like that. But then also, yeah, what I find is, one thing that's been grinding me lately is CBT therapy and DBT, I think it's called, that one, therapy. Because what I'm seeing is, it's all good and well doing it, but if you're not there, if that person ain't in your life that's giving you that DBT therapy and that, then I don't see how it helps.
It does help.
It says, like, ground yourself with nature.
No, but what you got to understand is,
you're not looking at it like that.
Yeah, but what you got to look at is, again, you got to be careful, because SPs, I have this conversation with SPs all the time. They're always saying, "Oh, it doesn't help," and this and that. And if you say something doesn't help, what you say is going to come true. So if you say it's not going to help, it's not going to help. Literally, somebody patting you on the back could be a help. It's only whether you're going to allow it to be a help. Because if you ask yourself for it to be a help, it will be a help. But if someone pats you on the back and you turn around and say it's not help, well, it won't be any help, because you've just said it's not no help. You understand me? So basically, the way that you would then get the help, the way that you have to look on it is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. It is good, because what it's going to do is like this, is like simply, like, you see when I said to you, when you're in BPD, and you fall into bipolar, and then I talk you down and ask you certain type of questions. Well, what that would be is CBT, because that's helping you to understand to understand, take in the information. And then you got the dilation, means how you then put it out, isn't it? Like how you then put it back out.
Yeah.
Exactly. So then, therefore, how you start talking to me as a response, and then as you talk to me as a response, and I change what I do. So if you're talking to me negatively, I would ask you a question. If you're talking to me positively, then I will bring back something. So yes, it does help. But what you've got to understand is, these are therapies for people in that moment. Things like personal help, like personal people who sit there and they show you how to get on with your life, how to spend your money, and them things there, then that's different. That's when you've got control of that. Now that will work. Absolute deep psychology, where somebody tells you what personality type you are, what you think to do, how your brain works, what it's going to do. That is when you're gone deeper than that. You need that in order to understand. So you've got to understand, it's all a procedure. It's all it's not just one fits all. There's a particular procedure that a pattern you have to go. You have to go through, and it depends on what stage you're at, what you might need. So counselling would be at the point where you're all right, but you've got all the tools, you know what to do. But a couple of times you're gonna have a little wobble. I
find that they know this already. Like it's already set up, but it's not explained to people.
Yeah, because the reason why it's not explained to people, because one, psychology is not something that you should be toying with. It's not something that you should go around talking about and the thing. So to tell people the full detail, how would it help? Because how would it help? Because
I don't know, but at the time you feel, because it's like you have to jump through hoops and boundaries. First of all, and I've seen this with a lot of people in my situation, or even ones of different types of disorders like BPD, or where it's got really bad, and we all have the same pattern of lining of how we get help. Is they put you under as depressed. They give you all these different types of drugs. you stop taking the drugs, they don't work.
But
it may be different.
No, you're right. What you're saying, nothing's wrong with what you're saying. This is what you need to understand. This is why it's going to be a struggle for you, because nothing you're saying is wrong. And if you say something that's not wrong, why would you question it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's wrong. You're not saying it's wrong, but what you are doing is focusing only one side. Because the what you're talking about is if you go through the government. Now, the government legislation would be that if you're a problem to society, then we'll give you support, and they will just look at what you do, and it's gonna be mediocre at the best. Because the fact of the matter is, they're not going to pay for bespoke work. They're going to put just normal work. That's what private and everything else for is for the bespoke. So if you go privately, that's when, if you've got a problem, you would more likely go through that stage, but it's going to cost you so much. If you're just an average Joe, it's probably going to be a little bit much for you. And unless there's a direct need. And if you've got a child or you're having a problem, you're probably going to end up in one of the last solutions that you're not going to have the right amount of money. So then, so if you're not one of the affluent people, it's probably going to be a struggle. If you're one of the lucky few who can, well, there you go, there's the answer.
Yeah, people aren't.
No, but the fact of the matter is, psychology is big money. The fact of the matter is, we're talking about a highly specialist thing. For someone to look into the details of, when you talk about a person, the details of a person is moving. It's changing, developing as time goes along. So for someone to be able to see that change, see that movement as and while it's happening, and before it happened, that's quite a unique thing. And you look at it like someone just tell you, why didn't you tell me? But by telling people facts about certain things about themselves doesn't always be helpful. Because if somebody's struggling, you're talking on one sense because that's you. But what about others who are much more gentler in their presence in many ways? So it's going to be harder for them to live with that information, or they haven't got not everybody's got perfect support. So it's not going to be ideal. So you say the government's bad, but they're offering you something. The fact, man, there isn't an ideal. There isn't a specific ideal, because whoever regime, whatever we've done, it's always going to be a struggle. So really the answer is we must all each personally take responsibility for our mental health. Because by saying the government should have these systems there, it wouldn't change nothing. Because what we're going through is not because of that you're autistic and autistic makes you sick. It's because you're autistic and you're sensitive to the detail of nature, of the life around you. And saying sensory, they interact with the life around them. So it's basically what is happening to us is creating our mind to go into certain places. So there's not, you can give a system here that fixes us, but then something happens, we rock off the other way. And so there's never ever going to be, that's we develop. That's why we should always keep talking, keep listening to each other. Doesn't matter if you've heard it before. Everybody has a different point of view. As you grow older, your intelligence towards what's going on becomes much more, your intelligence becomes much more robust as times go on. So, no day is the same as the next day. We need to, come away from this, back in the old days it was better and this and that. No. Let's really explore ourselves and what we can. There's one life to live. There might be 365 days in a year, as we see, but there is just really one day, as in one life to live. You understand me? Many sections of one life. So instead of wasting your time thinking about yesterday and tomorrow and what might be and what isn't and what is, just try to, because by looking into the future and looking into the past creates you to fall into a delusion. And a delusion sends you into a psychological imbalance. You do that for too long, you will be knocking at the hospital's door asking for some type of support.
Yes.
And I'll be straight. I'll be controversial right about now. Yeah, to all those who think they're gonna go to the church, or go to a black magic voodoo thing or a countryman, It's not that these people are not true, and it's not. I'm not saying in the moment that they're frauds or whatever. They may or they may not be, but it's not that simple. If it was that simple, psychology wouldn't be such a complex place.
Yeah.
You understand me? So anything I say to anybody out there, don't bother with no self-help. Smoking weed and taking like Red Bull, like uppers, caffeine and stimulants.
Yeah.
Yeah. As much as it does help, and it will feel. I'm not gonna lie.
I do find that.
Yeah, but you should, you if you're gonna, you've got to be careful again, because you've got to understand at what point are you hyperactive and at what point are you thinking. Because if you're drinking, you're hyping yourself up, you're throwing yourself into a delusion quicker. You're smoking weed and you're in a delusion, do it at the wrong time, you're going to stay in a delusion. So it's not as easy just simply drinking and smoking, because what you find is chasing. And before you know it, a lot of these kids are on drugs, and adults on drugs, drinking and gambling, can't cope because they're just chasing this buzz all the time.
You know, when they ask you about your eating habits, I don't know if this is true or not, only based on what my doctor said to me. But basically, why they ask you about your eating habits and drinking habits and things is because they have noticed a correlation with people that take things like Red Bulls and coffees and smoke weed and do downers, like pills and certain pills that are downers, because they're trying to balance up their BPD to make them on a more normal level. And in order to do that, unconsciously, you're taking an upper to get you up out of that miserable mood. Then you're taking a downer, so you're not staying too up or going up too high.
No, what really happened is, what really happened is, it's hard to do it because you need to understand each person, yourself, and what you have to understand yourself quite well. That's why psychologists can do it, otherwise others can't, because you need to understand yourself first. You would need to fully understand what reactions are, because it's not as easy as that. Because when you're taking stimulants as somebody, so for instance, you SP, you guys would generally want to take a stimulant in the morning.
Yes.
Yeah, and in the daytime. And the reason, and when you take that, people say, the first thing a normal person say, but wouldn't that be worse? Because if they're sort of like hyperactive, like with you guys, they wouldn't. They think that you are docile. But to realise that you're not docile, because you're very active.
Yeah.
You know, when you're not moving, it's not because you can't be bothered to do nothing. It's because of the fact you're so active, you almost can't choose what to do. You're not sure which one you should do first. You're like hyper thinking. So what happens is, by taking stimulants, speeds your body up that it can almost catch up with your mind. So to the normal person, it gets them more gas, hype up, and they'll feel their heart rate. But somebody, when somebody either autistic or BPD, when they got on the autistic scale like ADHD, stimulants makes them feel normal.
Yeah.
What it does, it lifts you up, and then what it does, it catches. So if your mind's at the top, your body's at the bottom. When it lifts your body up to the middle, your mind down to the middle, well, then you're normal. And then, but what happened is, now when you're normal, through your reactions for the day, you're feeling good, you take on a few more, I can do this and this, and then before you know it, you flops up again. So even though your body is still going at a fast pace, it will slow down. That's where you'll keep on drinking the Red Bull to keep it up. Yeah. And then when your brain starts to go up too much now, and to overthink, that's when you're going to want to smoke something that's going to, a depressant, have a depressant to bring your mind down, like a spliff or something in it, bring your mind back down. So that means now it brings your mind, slows your mind down a little bit, so it brings it back to your body. But again, it then brings you down until it can almost depress you, don't you think? So so things can knock you off, and then you get caught up, and that's where you find people stuck on cigarettes, on weed, stuck on coffees, teas, stuck on exercise or something, because they found themselves trying to chase it and they've not understood it. Things are knocking them. When they feel good, one of the typical things that SP is going to do when they feel good, as they feel good, they had it bad, it's been stressed out, and they finally worked out it feels good. The first thing they're going to do is, well, I feel good, I may as well try it out at a party. But before I go to that party, I'll just help John while I've got the energy and I've got them few things to do. And there, before you know it, rip back, bang, they're falling into overthinking.
Yeah.
And that's what the SPs all the time. And that's something that you guys need to do. That's why, if you notice with me, I always say to you, don't help people. People probably think I'm being wicked, saying, like, what a wicked person. Who walks around and says, don't help nobody? Yeah? But the reason why, because the SPs, easy. No, not even because it really is that easy for you, but it's not about whether it's that easy. It's that how you help people is like what you're doing now, by simply expressing yourself. So people who ordinarily don't know how to express themselves, who can express themselves but don't know how to express their emotions, so you now have given them something to understand, a basis of what they can sort of relate to. And then now you've helped many people. But if you go out to try to specifically help one, yeah, you're going to overthink it and probably encourage them to do something that wasn't quite right for them. So, like, helping people, it causes you problem, because to help someone, you're going to think, all you're going to do is feel an emotion for someone, then you're going to start thinking, what can I do to help them? What would they need? That's another point for you to overthink. As soon as you overthink, you've gone back in that situation that you need to smoke weed. Before you know it, everybody thinks you're some weedhead. You understand me, yeah? You've got like 3 bags of shopping or something, yeah? No, it doesn't matter. And you do lapses, so you've probably not even got the receipts. Even the police are going to think you nicked it, because you just look like somebody been smoking weed all day. You understand me? And that's all because you tried to help somebody. You know, there's a saying they said, and from I was growing up, and I'll be truthful with you, yeah? I'm 45 now, yeah? And when I was growing up, yeah, up until about, I could truthfully say maybe 2 years. I'm going to be honest. I'm ashamed to say, but I'm going to tell you the truth. 2 years ago, I worked out the saying, yeah, no good deed goes unpunished. Because as a child, that was the most confusing saying in the world. Because I was thinking, how can you do a good deed? And it says unpunished. I swear that means you're getting punished for a good deed. I think, but they said when you do something good, I've never seen anything other than that saying that suggests that if you do something good, you get licked down, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've never got it. I'll be thinking, I wonder if I'm actually saying it right, or if there's something I'm missing, you know, because I usually make words into what I think they are. But then I realised a year ago, because what it means is when you do something good, you have to use your intelligence. And when you use your intelligence, you fall into psychological imbalance. And when you fall into that psychological imbalance, you get yourself into trouble. So no good deed goes unpunished. Yeah? That's why I said don't help people. You help people by helping yourself. And when you help yourself, you inspire the world, and the world will be helped. So, you know, one other little small thing you've got to look at by helping people, what's going to happen to you. When you help someone, you're naturally going to feel good about yourself. You're going to feel confident. You're going to feel as though, yeah, like I feel much better about myself. But then you're gassing yourself up and you get so confident that you go and start doing things that make people feel small. Yeah. So, you know, you don't use your intelligence to be intelligence. And if you now help people and allow your intelligence to grow and let people see, you're going to make people feel smaller. Most people enjoy you mainly because of the fact you use your intelligence so that you don't have to make people feel small. You use your intelligence to say the right things, do the right things, that when you're around people, they feel comfortable. You know, all my mates, when they come around you, they feel comfortable. Except for when you get excited, they start to feel a little bit small because they realise actually, yeah, what they're saying doesn't sound so sensible compared to what you're saying. And the worst thing is you didn't even realise what you were saying. So, you know, this is why I said it's good to work on yourself. Be a hero to yourself, and then you will be a hero to the world. And in all honesty, you are the objective to each and every personality type, how they should all be.
I want to say something. I'm dying for a Red Bull.
Right.
I don't have one.
Right. And that's it.
I'm going to have a cup of tea now.
Hi guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below.